Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are digging deep into the underground world of indie roguelikes to answer a very specific question. Is it possible to reinvent the Necromancer fantasy? We've seen it 1,000 times before. You raise the dead, you stand in the back, and you watch health bars go down. But every once in a while, a title comes along that strips away the bloat, focuses purely on the dopamine loop of army building, and delivers something that feels surprisingly fresh. That title is Skull Horde. We've been tracking this one for a while, ever since its early demo days about half a year ago. Back then, it was a promising concept. Now, it looks like one of the most competent, addictive, and satisfying horde building games on the market. But is it worth your time and money? Does the loop hold up after 5, 10, or 50 hours? Or does the novelty of being a floating skull wear off once the difficulty spikes? Today, we're going to break down everything, from the unique health mechanics and unit synergies, to the risk of rain-style difficulty scaling, and the pounding industrial soundtrack. Grab your scythes and wake the dead. This is Skull Horde before you buy. Let's start with the setup because it's simple, charming, and sets the tone perfectly. You aren't some brooding anime protagonist or a dark lord in spiky armor. You are a skull. That's it. Just a cranium. The narrative hook is that you were a powerful necromancer locked deep underground to protect the world from your power. Over time, your flesh rotted away, leaving just the bone. Meanwhile, a bunch of squatters, monsters, slimes, and dungeon dwellers moved into your catacombs. Now you've woken up, and you're essentially serving an eviction notice. You start with nothing but the ability to float and the power to reanimate. The goal is straightforward. Descend through procedurally generated floors, build a massive army of the undead, and kill everything that isn't you. It's a classic power fantasy, but the way Skull Horde executes this is where the magic lies. It understands that you don't want to micromanage individual skeletons, you want to be the conductor of a symphony of destruction. Here's the single most important thing you need to understand about Skull Horde, and it's the mechanic that defines the entire experience. You do not have a health bar. In almost every other game in this genre, you have a character with HP. If you get hit, you die. In Skull Horde, your army is your health bar. You are surrounded by a circle of minions. Archers, swordsmen, mages, golems. When an enemy attacks, they aren't hitting you. They are killing your units. Every time your entire squad is wiped out, you lose 1 life. You have 3 lives total. When your squad dies, they go on a cooldown timer before respawning. This creates a fascinating dynamic where you are constantly balancing offense and defense. If your health bar takes too much damage, your DPS drops to 0 because your units are dead. You have to run around, dodging attacks as a defenseless skull, waiting for that respawn timer to tick down so your boys can jump back into the fight. It shifts the tension completely. You aren't watching a red bar in the corner of the screen. You're watching the physical density of your army. When the crowd starts thinning out, panic sets in. It's a brilliant visual representation of health that keeps your eyes glued to the action. So, how do you build this meat shield? Or rather, bone shield? The game operates on a draft system similar to auto battlers like Teamfight Tactics or Dota Underlords, but much faster. You have access to shops where you can buy units using gold ducats. The rule of 3 applies here. If you buy 3 of the same unit, they merge into a veteran version. Get 3 veterans and they merge into a champion. You can field up to 6 different unit types at once, and the variety is solid. You've got your basics like pikemen and archers, but then it gets interesting. You have dancers who are weak but have high dodge chance. You have bone golems who literally just stand there to tank damage. You have fire mages to stack burn damage, and weird little drummer orcs to buff the team. The strategy comes from how you mix and match these units with the item system. This isn't just pick the strongest guy. If you find an item that grants thorns, damage reflection, suddenly those passive bone golems become your highest damage dealers because they're soaking up all the hits. If you find items that boost dodge, a squad of dancers becomes nearly invincible. The game is also incredibly generous with re-rolls. You know how in some roguelikes re-rolling the shop costs a fortune so you never do it? Skull Horde wants you to find the build you want. Re-rolling is cheap, allowing you to fish for that one specific archer you need to hit a champion tier upgrade. It respects your time and lets you lean into the fun part of the RNG rather than fighting against it. Speaking of items, the loot system is where the game's depth really shines. You have 2 currencies, gold for units and corpuscles for relics. The relics aren't just boring plus 5% damage upgrades. They dramatically shift how you play. During our analysis of the gameplay, we saw a run that focused entirely on luck and crit. Luck is a surprisingly vital stat here. It doesn't just give you better drops, it triggers specific events and item procs. If you stack enough luck, you start seeing legendary items dropping from standard mobs. The UI is fantastic about this too. When a rare item drops solely because of your luck stat, the game literally puts a luck tag over it, letting you know that your build investment just paid off. We saw a build that utilized a relic called Desert Winds, which spawns a fire tornado every time you land a critical hit. Combine that with a 50% crit chance and a squad of archers with high attack speed, and suddenly the screen is filled with fire tornadoes. It's chaotic, it's messy, and it makes you feel like a god. There are also trade-off items. You might find an item that says your units deal 50% more damage, but if they die, they take longer to respawn. Or gain 3 free units instantly, but the dungeon difficulty increases faster. These decisions add weight to the run. Do you take the power now and pay for it later? Or do you play it safe? Let's talk about that difficulty scaling because it's a direct nod to Risk of Rain. In the top right corner of the screen, there is a timer. It is always ticking. As time passes, the difficulty setting shifts from easy to medium, eventually climbing all the way up to Apocalypse. This forces you to make a constant strategic choice. Do I speedrun the level to keep the difficulty low, or do I stay and farm enemies to get more gold and items, risking the timer pushing the game into Apocalypse mode? When the game hits high difficulty, it doesn't just spawn more enemies. We're talking meteors falling from the sky, artillery strikes, and massive elite enemies that can one-shot your entire army. It turns into a bullet hell. The pacing is excellent. There are little events scattered around the map, like a banner you have to defend for 60 seconds. These events freeze the progression timer but spawn waves of enemies. If your build is strong, these are loot piñatas. If your build is weak, these are death traps. It allows you to control the flow of the game based on your confidence level. Aesthetically, Skull Horde punches above its weight class. It uses a minimalist pixel art style that reminds me of early DOS games, but with modern fluidity. The units are small, but they are readable. You can tell a veteran archer from a rookie at a glance. But the real star of the show is the game feel. Everything has a crunch to it. When your army hits an enemy, there's a satisfying screen shake and impact sound. When you pick up gold, it chimes beautifully. The feedback loop is incredibly tactile, and the music? It's awesome. The developer opted for a soundtrack that sits somewhere between gent metal and industrial grindhouse. It's heavy, rhythmic, and drives the action forward. It's the kind of music that makes you want to smash things, which is appropriate given the subject matter. When the bass drops and your army engages a boss, it creates a flow state that is hard to break away from. So, is Skull Horde perfect? Well, if we have to nitpick, there is one area that feels like a missed opportunity. Currently, almost all upgrades focus on your army. The skull itself, you, remains mostly a passive cursor. It would be incredible to see a skill tree, or items that mutate the skull itself, maybe giving you a laser eye or skeletal arms to cast spells, making the commander feel as progressive as the army. Additionally, as of right now, the game is strictly a roguelike, not a roguelite. That means there isn't much in the way of permanent meta progression. When you die, you start over. For some, that's a pro. For others who love grinding permanent stats, that might be a con. However, these are minor gripes in the face of what is an incredibly polished package. Skull Horde is a game that knows exactly what it wants to be. It doesn't try to be a sweeping RPG or a complex RTS. It is a tight, focused, arcade-style army builder that respects the player's intelligence and time. If you are a fan of Loop Hero, Vampire Survivors, or Boneraiser Minions, this is an absolute no-brainer. It scratches that itch of watching numbers go up, while providing enough active decision-making to keep you engaged. The build variety is deep enough to support dozens of runs. You can do a burn build with fire mages. You can do a thorns build with golems. You can do a crit/dodge build with assassins. The fact that the game allows you to pivot your strategy mid-run by banishing units and re-rolling shops makes it feel less like gambling and more like tactical planning. Skull Horde is a prime example of an indie developer taking a simple concept and polishing it until it shines. It's addictive, it's loud, and it's incredibly fun. So, Skull Horde. It's chaotic, it's challenging, and it lets you command an army of the dead to the beat of industrial metal. If that sounds like a good Friday night to you, then this is a definitive buy. As always, thanks for watching/reading. If you've played the demo or the full release, let me know in the comments. What's your favorite unit composition? Are you a fire mage person, or do you prefer the raw tankiness of the bone golems? I'll see you all in the next dungeon. Stay safe and keep the horde growing.